The Grizzly Creek Orphanage was converted from a dilapidated farm building on the outskirts of town. It was supposed to be a safe haven for children, but it was more like an abandoned prison. Even in the early hours of the morning, the dampness from the cold concrete walls seeped into the bones of those inside. Rats roamed the floor, picking up the breadcrumbs left over from meals, and the children spent their time trying to shoo them away in addition to hunger. Lucy was a slim but determined 12-year-old girl. Her brother Samuel was 6 years old and looked around with the chocolate brown eyes they inherited from their mother. Life at the orphanage was particularly hard for children like little Samuel. The burly headmistress, Mrs. Hartwell, constantly scolded the children, threatening to cut off their food if they made mistakes. Lucy didn't know what to do when she heard her brother crying out of hunger, but her protective instinct told her that she had to stand up against all odds. That morning, as she watched Samuel trying to play with a broken toy car, Lucy could hardly hold back her tears. She had to find a way out. For days she had been looking out the window of the orphanage, dreaming of a moment when they could escape. What she heard about the opportunities for the town's white orphans sent a wave of anger through Lucy. In this town, a black child was considered a criminal not just for being an orphan, but for even existing. The orphanage was a reflection of how society viewed these children. Lucy understood this with an insight far beyond her years. In the middle of the night, when everyone was asleep, Lucy took out a few pieces of dry bread she had hidden on the floor of her room. Clutching Samuel's hand tightly, she quietly made her way into the hallway. "Where are we going, Lucy?" Samuel whispered when he felt his sister shiver. "We're getting away from here," Lucy said, her voice determined but timid. As they approached the fence in the orphanage's backyard, a dog barking broke the silence. Lucy led Samuel through a gap in the fence, then she crawled out herself. As she sprinted across the grass in the moonlight, her heart was beating so hard she thought she had forgotten how to breathe. They hid in a roadside ditch outside the town. Samuel had never looked at Lucy like that before. There was admiration mixed with fear. Lucy hugged her brother tightly and said, "From now on, it's just us. I will always protect you," she said. Lucy's mind flashed back to her experiences at the orphanage. Because they were black, they got less food, worse beds, and the hardest work. She knew it wasn't fair, but she didn't know where to look for justice. In the morning, they awoke to the sound of birds chirping through the forest. Lucy's plan was to reach somewhere outside the town. But there was something she didn't know yet. The world that awaited them could be more dangerous than the orphanage. Lucy walked in silence, holding Samuel by the hand. The dark streets grew quieter with the echo of broken lamps and creaking boards. When the fatigue became unbearable, she felt her knees shake as she carried her brother. When he heard Samuel muttering hunger, he didn't know what to do. Just then, a headlight appeared on the street. An old pickup truck slowly pulled up beside them. A middle-aged white man at the wheel stuck his head out of the window and spoke. "What are you doing here at night? Do you need help?" Lucy's heart began to race. Intuitively, she pulled back, but Samuel's murmuring voice stopped her. "Lucy, look, maybe he can help us." The man smiled as he opened the truck door. "My name is Jack. Look, there's something here, soup and some bread." "Come on, you're hungry." Lucy hesitated. Something strange in the man's smile made her uneasy. But Samuel's exhaustion and hunger prevailed. Lucy took her brother by the hand and sat in the back seat. The man started the truck and drove off in silence. Handing the children a blanket, he said, "It's a cold night. Wrap yourselves in this." Lucy watched his face intently as she tried to wrap Samuel up and keep him warm. Jack started talking on the road. "You know, this town hasn't always been a fair place. But if you follow the rules, things will be easier." Lucy felt there was a threat in those words. But Samuel, with the naivety of a child, believed everything the man offered. A bowl of soup, a warm bed for Samuel. It was like a miracle. When they arrived at the cabin, Jack opened the door and invited them in. Inside, the stove was burning, and the smell of hot food wafted over the table. Lucy was still paying attention to him as Samuel excitedly sat down in a chair. "What's your name, little girl?" Jack asked. "Lucy," she replied. "That's a nice name," he said, then tilted his head to the side and added, "But I rule here." "It's good to know that." Lucy felt even more on edge after those words. Jack's voice was soft, but his manner authoritative. That night, as Samuel fell asleep, Lucy sat by the window and watched Jack's movements. He moved around the room, sometimes looking at Samuel and sometimes standing by the window looking out. Lucy couldn't wait until morning. She had to make a plan for Samuel's safety. She noticed the key on Jack and acted at midnight, after making sure he was asleep. With trembling hands, she took the key from Jack's pocket. "Follow me quietly," he whispered, waking his brother. Samuel clung tightly to Lucy's hand in his sleepiness. As they opened the door and stepped out, Jack's voice echoed behind them. "Where are you going?" Lucy turned to see Jack standing angrily in the doorway. At that moment, however, Jack noticed another headlight flash, and his gaze turned to freezing. Another vehicle was approaching. An old police car stopped right in front of Lucy and Samuel. Henry, a black police officer, got out and stood in front of the children. "What's going on here?" he asked in a stern but controlled voice. "I was just helping," Jack said, backing away. But Lucy, summoning all her courage, shouted, "He was going to hurt us." Henry gave Jack a stern look and took the children with him into the car. Jack stood back and remained silent, disappearing into the shadows. Lucy and Samuel were safe with Henry. Lucy felt herself breathing deeply for the first time. Samuel was asleep, snuggled in his sister's lap. Lucy looked into Henry's eyes, watching them in the rearview mirror. There was a warmth, a trust in this man. As Henry drove on in silence, Lucy gave thanks. She realized that life could still show them some compassion. Lucy held Samuel in her arms in Henry's car, leaning his head against the window. The darkness of the night streamed through the window. Henry's calm, deep voice echoed through the car. "Don't worry, you're safe. I'll take you to a good place." Lucy didn't know if she could trust Henry, but after her experience with Jack, she felt too tired to question his sincerity. Samuel had fallen into a deep sleep, tiredly snuggled in Lucy's arms. Lucy looked into her little brother's face. The thing she cared about most in life was that he was safe. After a while, the vehicle approached a farm surrounded by large trees. The dim lights of the farm gave Lucy's eyes a slight relief. Henry slowly brought his car to a stop. Opening the back door and gesturing with his hand, he said, "Come on, this will be your shelter for a while." The farmhouse door opened to reveal an old woman with a warm smile on her face. "Welcome," she said, her voice soft but carrying a strong compassion. "I'm Ruth. Henry said he would bring you here." Ruth let the children in. The house was filled with a warm stove and the smell of clean wood. Lucy saw some old toys and a small bed in one corner. Samuel ran excitedly towards the toys. When Lucy saw her brother smile for the first time, she realized that tears were welling up in his eyes. "You're cold," Ruth said, handing the children blankets. "I've prepared some hot food for you, but first change your clothes. Have some clean clothes." As Lucy watched Samuel, wrapped in a blanket, eating a hot soup, she was overwhelmed by Ruth's kindness to them. It was something she had never experienced before, true compassion. Henry sat down at the table while Lucy ate the hot soup Ruth offered her. After a moment of silence, he looked at Lucy. "Survival can sometimes be very difficult," he said. "But it's not just about fighting, it's about finding the right people." Lucy bowed her head. In her struggle to protect her sister, she didn't know who she could trust. But Henry's words began to break the ice. "People like us," Henry said, "can't make a place in this world without helping each other. You are safe here. Ruth will keep you here for a while. Then we will find the best solution for you." Lucy watched Samuel smile as he played with the toys. It was the first time she had ever felt so at peace. Her brother's happiness was everything to her. That night, Lucy sat in front of the window. There was an oak tree in the large garden of the farmhouse. A swing swung from its branches. As Lucy watched the swing, she tried to make sense of the scene. The tree was a symbol of a past with strong roots and a hope whose branches reached into the future. Ruth came quietly to Lucy and put a hand on her shoulder. "Miss," she said, "this world may not always be fair, but people can create justice by helping each other." Lucy looked back at Ruth. In her eyes were the years of pain and the courage of a woman who had survived. Ruth's words lit a new light of hope in Lucy. In the morning, Lucy found Samuel playing on a swing in the garden. Her brother's laughter mingled with the chirping of the birds. As Lucy drank the tea Ruth had made, she thought about how their lives could change. She was no longer alone. Samuel's smile, Ruth's kindness, and Henry's determination reminded Lucy of a powerful reality. This world may not always be fair, but hope was always waiting somewhere. Lucy pushed the swing, walking towards her brother. Samuel's laughter rose. He raised his eyes to the oak tree and whispered the words, "We will make it."